When did you last read the back of your tortilla package? Most people never do, and that is exactly what multi-billion-dollar food corporations are counting on. Because inside most flour tortillas sitting in Australian refrigerators right now, there is a dough conditioner that can be derived from duck feathers or dissolved human hair. There is wood pulp used as a texture filler to cut manufacturing costs, and the specific wrap sold to health-conscious Australians as the clean, low-carb choice has over 20 ingredients, more than the standard budget options on the same shelf. We put 7 popular brands under the microscope, 5 to avoid completely, and 2 that actually kept it clean. The worst offender on this list is highly likely to be sitting in your kitchen cabinet right this second. By the time we finish, you will find out exactly how industrial bakeries manipulate chemical loopholes to bypass local labeling regulations. I will show you how to spot hidden structural fillers designed to mimic real freshness, and we will crack open the exact laboratory data that exposes the gap between marketing folklore and corporate reality. If you think your favorite premium brand is exempt from these shortcuts, the revelation waiting near the end of this investigation will completely change how you navigate the grocery aisle. Before we name a single brand, we need to strip away the marketing romance and look at how a real tortilla is supposed to exist. A traditional tortilla is a marvel of ancient food science, requiring exactly 3 or 4 basic elements: stone ground corn or wheat flour, water, a source of fat like lard or oil, and sea salt. That is it. When you mix wheat flour with water, 2 proteins called gliadin and glutenin join forces to create gluten, a natural elastic network that gives the dough its structure, stretch, and chew. In a traditional kitchen, this network develops naturally through patient kneading and resting. Time is the invisible ingredient that makes the dough cooperative enough to be rolled thin and cooked on a hot, flat plate. Industrial production lines do not have time. A modern commercial bakery is a mechanical gauntlet where massive metal extruders press, stamp, and bake thousands of wraps per minute. If you run traditional dough through these high-speed machines, the natural gluten network fights back, snapping the dough backward, tearing the sheets, and clogging the mechanical rollers. To prevent these costly line stoppages, the corporate food industry relies on a shortcut known as chemical dough conditioning. Instead of allowing gluten to develop through time and mechanical resting, manufacturers inject synthetic amino acids and reducing agents directly into the vat. These compounds chemically break the sulfur bonds within the protein matrix, permanently relaxing the dough so it can be stretched paper thin at breakneck speed without pushing back against the machinery. Then comes the second hurdle of industrial food distribution, the logistics chain. A real tortilla made from flour, water, and fat behaves exactly like fresh bread. It begins to dry out, lose its flexibility, and succumb to environmental mold spores within 3 to 5 days at room temperature. For a supermarket logistics network, a 5-day lifespan is a commercial disaster. To ensure a packet can sit in a distribution center, ride in a semi-trailer across the Nullarbor, spend weeks on a Woolworths shelf, and then survive another month in your damp fridge crisper without changing texture, the industry transforms the product into a shelf-stable chemical ecosystem. They swap traditional fats for highly refined vegetable oils that resist rancidity, and they introduce heavy networks of chemical preservatives. These mold inhibitors function by altering the pH level inside the dough, creating a highly acidic environment that paralyzes microscopic fungal spores. While this keeps the wrap looking pristine for months, it also permanently locks in moisture, leaving you with a product that is chemically prevented from decomposing. The industry relies entirely on the fact that when you see a soft, bendy wrap, your brain associates that pliability with freshness. In reality, that everlasting softness is not a sign of life. It is a sign of clinical preservation. We are paying premium prices for engineered stability disguised as home-baked tradition, and it is time to look at the data. Let us dive straight into the worst offenders hitting Australian supermarket shelves right now. Number 5. Mission Extra Soft Original Tortillas, the undisputed king of the Mexican food aisle in Woolworths and Coles. Walk into any major grocer in Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane, and Mission dominates the eye-level real estate. It is the brand Aussies grab by default for Friday night fajitas because the packaging feels established, trusted, and clean. The corporate entity behind this household staple is Groomer, a multi-billion-dollar global agribusiness conglomerate that manufactures over 10 million wraps a day across multiple continents. When an operation scales to that size, traditional baking methods are completely discarded in favor of industrial efficiency. Mission Extra Soft flour tortillas lead their ingredient panel with wheat flour synthetically fortified with thiamine and folic acid, which means the industrial milling process stripped out the grain's natural nutrients, forcing them to spray vitamins back onto the mixture later. To achieve that signature extra soft texture that never rips, they rely on vegetable gums like carboxymethylcellulose, listed locally as additive 466. If that name sounds familiar, it is because purified cellulose is synthesized directly from wood pulp or cotton linters. It acts as a cheap structural filler, absorbing massive amounts of water to create a false sensation of doughy freshness while driving down production costs. They also add calcium propionate, preservative 282, to ensure the packet can sit in your pantry for over a month without growing a single speck of mold. Real flatbread cannot do that. The absolute kicker is that this premium-priced brand costs roughly 65 cents per wrap, yet its core formulation relies entirely on the same low-cost industrial chemistry found in the cheapest items on the market. A review published by Choice Consumer Advocates highlighted that many big-name supermarket wraps contain surprisingly high levels of sodium and synthetic softeners just to survive warehouse transport. Mission has spent millions conditioning Australian shoppers to associate its name with an authentic family dinner, but the actual science inside the bag tells a story of optimized shelf stability and corporate cost-cutting. Woolworths. If you are already itching to check your own pantry, subscribe right now because it only gets rougher from here. Number 4. Supermarket house brands, specifically Woolworths Essentials and Coles Kitchen Tortillas. These are the options nobody bothers to examine because they never claim to be premium. They sit on the bottom shelf in plain, clear plastic bags with generic text, undercutting the named brands by up to 50%. People assume that by paying less than $3 for a 10-pack, they are getting a significantly lower quality product than the premium named brands. Let us look at the actual laboratory facts. The ingredient list for Woolworths house brand tortillas leads with enriched wheat flour, water, palm shortening, mineral salts 500 and 450, and preservatives 282 and 200. If you cross-reference that exact chemical layout with Mission, you will find it is functionally identical in every major industrial category. They use the exact same mold inhibitor, calcium propionate, and the exact same chemical leavening agents. A family buying Coles or Woolworths house brands because their weekly grocery budget demands the cheapest option is not getting a structurally worse product than the shopper paying double for Mission. They are getting the identical high-speed industrial formula, just without paying the hidden tax for the massive marketing campaigns and television commercials surrounding the premium brand names. The only real difference between a $2 store wrap and a $5 premium wrap is the advertising budget of the company that printed the label. Neither option represents a tortilla in the original culinary sense. They are both mass-produced commodities wrapped in distinct price tags. Woolworths Tortillas 10-pack, Woolworths. Number 3. Old El Paso. This is the brand that did not just sell you a flatbread, it sold your entire family a weekly institutional ritual. Taco Tuesday in Australia belongs to Old El Paso more than any other corporation. The bright yellow box contains hard shells on one side, soft flour tortillas on the other, a spice packet in the middle, and the corporate promise that your family dinner is fully sorted with zero cognitive effort. The brand is owned by General Mills, the same multinational giant behind massive processed food labels like Uncle Toby's and Betty Crocker. What is inside that yellow box is a textbook example of corporate food engineering. Start with the seasoning packet. It is heavily loaded with maltodextrin, a highly processed white powder derived from corn or wheat starch. Used as a cheap flavor carrier, maltodextrin possesses a glycemic index significantly higher than refined table sugar, causing rapid spikes in blood glucose levels. The packet also contains silicon dioxide, listed as anti-caking agent 551, which keeps the spices from clumping in warehouse storage. Silicon dioxide is the primary chemical compound found in natural quartz and sand. The soft tortillas in the kit rely on calcium propionate, preservative 282, to guarantee their long shelf life. Independent dietary studies published in the Journal of Pediatrics and Child Health noted strong statistical correlations between regular consumption of calcium propionate and acute irritability, restlessness, and sleep disturbances in young children. While the clinical data remains open to debate, the risk is pronounced enough that several international food authorities have strictly restricted its usage in products targeted directly at minors. Old El Paso aims its marketing squarely at busy parents with young kids, meaning the very demographic most vulnerable to these synthetic preservatives is consuming them as part of a weekly family tradition. The yellow box feels like a warm, home-cooked event, but the underlying supply chain is just a corporate commodity engineered to hit ruthless cost targets. Number 2. Simpsons Pantry Tortillas. This brand represents the classic marketing trick of using local imagery to mask large-scale industrial processing. Produced in Victoria, Simpsons Pantry relies heavily on its Australian-made heritage, clean farm aesthetic, and premium packaging to stand out on Coles and Woolworths shelves. The corporate entity positions these wraps as the wholesome choice for health-conscious families who want to support local agriculture. However, flipping the package over reveals the exact same industrial shortcuts used by its multinational competitors. Simpsons Pantry flour tortillas contain an extensive array of synthetic additives, including humectant 422, emulsifier 471, acidity regulator 297, and the ubiquitous mold inhibitors 282 and 200. They also utilize vegetable gums to maintain structural elasticity under mechanical pressure. An independent review by an Australian food technologist pointed out that these extended shelf life wraps function more like a pliable plastic membrane than traditional baked bread. When you open a fresh pack of Simpsons Pantry, the aroma is flat, chemical, and completely neutral, lacking the rich, yeasty scent of real flour and fat. They charge a substantial premium for this local branding, coming out to nearly 80 cents per serve, making it a highly profitable exercise in regional sentimentality. The Australian-made logo triggers an immediate reflex of trust in local shoppers, but the industrial chemistry inside the bag is indistinguishable from the global commodity brands it competes against. Number 1. Low-carb and keto-specific wraps, found across major health food aisles and chemist warehouses nationwide. This is the ultimate health trap, the single most heavily engineered product in the entire bakery section. Diabetics reach for these wraps instinctively because the front panel promises minimal impact on blood sugar. Keto dieters carefully calculate them into their daily macros because the net carbohydrate count appears miraculously low. The math on the nutrition panel is technically correct, but the methods used to achieve those numbers are genuinely horrifying. To replace the bulk of real flour without losing structural form, food scientists pack these wraps with massive quantities of modified wheat starch, isolated vital wheat gluten, and high-density plant fibers like oat fiber or soy hulls. A single low-carb tortilla frequently contains over 20 distinct ingredients, just to compensate for the fact that real flour has been stripped out. Without the natural starch matrix, the dough becomes completely unmanageable, forcing manufacturers to deploy multiple synthetic emulsifiers simultaneously. They combine sodium stearoyl lactylate, mono and diglycerides of fatty acids, and DATEM just to keep the protein membrane from dissolving into a sticky paste on the production line. Furthermore, these fitness-focused wraps still contain the exact same harsh preservatives, like calcium propionate, found in standard budget products. Health-conscious shoppers read the massive bold font highlighting low net carbs, but they completely ignore the 20-line chemical blueprint sitting quietly at the bottom of the package. It is an industrial illusion designed to exploit medical necessity for premium profit margins. Right, here comes the part that made watching this far worth it. We have waded through the wood pulp, the multiple industrial emulsifiers, and the harsh preservation chemicals masquerading as freshness. Now, it is time to look at the brands that chose a completely different path, proving that you do not need a chemistry degree to keep a flatbread structurally sound. Two exceptional manufacturers available right here in Australia stood their ground, refusing to sacrifice traditional cooking mechanics for the sake of artificial shelf life. They looked at the ancient rules of food science and decided that the original blueprint did not need to be corporate engineered. It simply needed to be respected and protected. Recommended option number 2. Diego's Go Well Classic Wraps. If you are absolutely determined to stick with a wheat flour wrap for your daily lunches but want to avoid the chemical cocktail of mass-market alternatives, this is your solid starting point. Diego's is an independent, family-owned business operating out of Queensland that has carved out a unique niche in the local market. While their standard commercial line does run some basic preservatives to survive supermarket transport, their Go Well premium range represents a significant step upward in terms of structural honesty. They have completely eliminated the harsh chemical dough conditioners, synthetic bleached flours, and isolated texturizers that dominate the mainstream bottom shelves. Fine food direct instead. The Go Well range focuses on a far cleaner ingredient panel that emphasizes whole grains and natural binders. The texture is noticeably different from the rubbery, plastic-like feel of a mass-produced wrap. It feels like authentic dough, carrying a clean, slightly nutty flavor that complements your food rather than masking it with synthetic chemical odors. At roughly 75 cents per serving, it sits at a slightly higher price point than a generic supermarket house brand, but that modest premium goes directly toward real structural ingredients rather than corporate advertising spend or heavy artificial stabilizing networks. It is a highly accessible, mainstream option that lets you clean up your daily lunchbox without having to hunt down specialist health boutiques. Now, let us close with the absolute gold standard of this entire investigation. Recommended option number 1, La Tortilleria corn tortillas. This is not just a cleaner choice, this is a total masterclass in ancient culinary integrity, produced right down in Melbourne using 100% Australian-grown ingredients. La Tortilleria does not use instant corn flour or imported premixes. They are the only major brand on local shelves that runs the authentic, multi-day process of nixtamalization. They take whole kernels of non-GMO Australian white corn, soak them overnight, and cook them in a traditional alkaline lime water solution before stone grinding the wet grain into real masa dough using genuine volcanic stones. Eat sustainably. You sure too. Let us look at the complete lab-verified ingredient list for La Tortilleria. Whole grain Australian corn and a pinch of sea salt. 2 ingredients. That is the entire panel. There is no wood pulp, no calcium propionate, no industrial vegetable gums, and no synthetic dough softeners. Because they refuse to add artificial bleaching agents, the tortillas carry a beautiful, natural golden hue rather than the clinical stark white of corporate alternatives. The ancient nixtamalization process naturally unlocks bound B-complex vitamins, significantly increases the bioavailability of plant proteins, and gives the tortilla its distinct, intoxicatingly rich, earthy corn aroma. When you pop one of these into a hot, dry pan for 30 seconds, it does not sit flat like cardboard. It puffs up beautifully, developing tiny charred bubbles and a perfect, pliable chew that holds its shape under the heaviest taco fillings. You can buy them directly at Harris Farm Markets, independent organic grocers, and specialty Mexican retailers nationwide. Price-wise, a pack will run you around $6 for a generous stack, which translates to a highly reasonable 40 cents per serve. To be completely transparent, there is one major catch you need to know. Because there are 0 artificial preservatives, the shelf life is strictly limited to a few days at room temperature before they naturally go stale. They will not survive a month in your pantry like a packet of Mission. If you do not plan to eat them immediately, you must store them in the freezer and thaw them out as needed. That brief logistical inconvenience is not a product defect. It is the definitive biological proof that you are eating real, living food instead of an engineered chemical ecosystem. It is the exact choice every conscious shopper needs to make. To protect your wallet and your health in the supermarket aisle, you need a few concrete rules to cut through the marketing smoke. First, turn the packet over and immediately ignore the big, bold lettering on the front panel. Go straight to the ingredient list and count the total items. If that number is greater than 5, or if you spot numbers like 282, 200, or 466, put it straight back on the shelf. Second, look closely for the phrase bleached or enriched flour on the panel. A truly clean wrap will always lead with simple, unbleached whole wheat or real stone-ground corn. Third, check the actual location of the product within the supermarket layout. If it is sitting in the middle aisle at room temperature with an expiry date 3 months in the future, it is an engineered ecosystem, not fresh bread. Fourth, when buying low-carb or high-protein health wraps, look specifically for modified starches or vegetable gums near the top of the list, as these are immediate red flags that the brand is substituting real food with industrial binding texturizers. Finally, remember that true food naturally decomposes. If a package claims to stay perfectly soft and mold-free for weeks in your fridge crisper, you are paying a heavy premium for chemical preservation. The entire commercial food industry relies on a single collective mindset shift. They expect us to buy products based entirely on the emotional authority of the branding, rather than the biological reality of the ingredients. They spend millions creating the illusion of a traditional family kitchen because they know that if you stop to read the back of the bag, the industrial illusion completely shatters. You do not need 20 separate chemical compounds to create a functional flatbread. By forcing corporations to compete on ingredient integrity rather than marketing budgets, we take back total control of what goes onto our family tables. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive into the bakery aisle. If you found this breakdown useful, share it with someone you know who buys wraps for school lunches every week. Drop a comment below letting me know which of these brands is sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now. If you want to see exactly what happens inside the industrial processing lines of other popular health foods, click on the video linked on your screen right now. Go check the package in your pantry tonight. Flip it over, count every single ingredient past flour, water, oil, and salt, and let that final number tell you exactly what you are eating.